So welcome everybody, my name is Paul and I have a large website on YouTube that people have seen for a long time, and over the years I've discussed a lot of different interesting subjects. Among them I talk a lot about perception and consciousness because it's common to all of us and it's an age-old subject of discussion and investigation. And today in this beginning series I want to talk about esoteric psychology. Now, a lot of people, when they hear that word, they don't understand, well, what it means about esoteric psychology. Well, this question of who we are and what our awareness is has been around for a very, very long time. And over the centuries and thousands of years, we've heard many different testimonies and stories, and even some great books and descriptions and texts that we have from about that subject. And I'm going to explore that in this series and a little bit about my so-called qualifications. I'm not a professional psychologist. I did take a couple courses in college and so on, and I've read literature and so on. And but my association with psychology in general has been, well, what does the word mean? Psyche, our psyche. What is our consciousness? And in the modern era, we have a lot of different kinds of psychologists that are practiced these days, and some of them have a behaviorist type of approach to it, saying that we're almost like robots and every single thing is conditioned and so on. And then there's more depth psychology like Carl Jung and even Freud, but Carl Jung in particular went into a lot of great depth, and books. He wrote a series of books, a really, really long series of books. I haven't read them all. I just read some of his, a little bit of his work. But the subject again gets very convoluted because essentially what the ancient teachers have taught us about our awareness is, what is who we are. That's the age-old question. What are we? And if we start looking into what we are as a human being, like, well, are we our body, because our body changes, and our senses have limits, and they also change and go through patterns during your life and so on. And even there are people who've had like strange experiences. Maybe they became unconscious in an accident and they wake up and they can speak another language, you see, or they forget things that their previous life, you see. So this subject of who we are as beings is very, very old, and I want to address it because my approach to it has been that, I got into meditation when I was very young. And again, right away, if you read some of these scriptures, like if you look, for example, a lot of people don't know this one, but the Upanishads. The Upanishads is a really amazing book, and this is actually Upanishads with a translation and a little bit of commentary. And for those who don't know, the Upanishads came out of the ancient India. It was written down at some point, but it was they don't even have an author. It's so old and so revered that they don't even ascribe any particular source of it. It's just wisdom that is given to humanity and understood and passed along. And in this book, if you ever read this, you can see how many times I've read this book, and this is not the only copy I've ever had, you see. So there's very profound statements about what human beings are. Who are we, you see? And basically, in a nutshell, we're a lot more than we're told, you see. Unless you grow up in certain kinds of cultures like the shamanic culture or one of the mystic culture from India or something like that, you won't get taught more about your own personality and own potential as a human being, your awareness, you see. Now, in a nutshell, this book here, very, very simple statement. It says, that human beings, our tendency is to look outward. We just look outward. That's just the way we are. The sense organs attract us. There's a lot out here. It's very powerful. There's chemistry going on, smells and sounds and all kinds of things, and heat. So our senses go outward as a natural course to perceive the world and understand it. But see, the ancient cultures and shamanic cultures talk about we need to balance that with a time of directing our attention to the inward. Because when we look inward and we feel ourselves as inward beings, we feel ourselves beyond all those different thought patterns and beyond all those things that we see and taste and touch and all those kind of things. And we know ourselves as a kind of, we are beyond our sight, we're beyond our ears, we're beyond our taste, all those senses that we have that we use are limited in scope and different from person to person, and certainly by species to species. So what we have in common here, we can all agree on. We have attention. We have an awareness. Okay, it's very, very basic. See, even a child coming out of the womb, they don't even know their name. They don't have a name. They don't have a personality. They haven't identified with anything. See, so they are represented potential, and what they do have is extraordinary openness to just becoming and being, and that's why they learn so fast. You see, but as time goes on, slowly but surely, society, the limits of our perception, the limits of people identify with different things, and then you start to mold. And there's certain kinds of societies that will mold you into the kind of clothes that you wear, and the type of hair you have to have, and all that stuff, And all the sages have said, look, human beings are, all of us, every single human being on the face of this earth, is much, 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 much more beyond that. And how do we know that? We can have our own experience. We don't need to be told that. You see, we don't need to have someone tell us, well, if you're really, really blind, I can tell you, okay, I will walk you out of this little area. So religion comes along and says, well, look, just follow me. And they might not even know where they're going. They might, let's say they know a little bit more than you do, and they can wander you around a little bit more, but they don't take you anywhere, you see. Now, over thousands and thousands of years, we lost that simplicity of how to just be as human beings, because we are robbing ourselves of our own full potential by not opening ourselves up to some other kinds of perception and expanded awareness and understanding of our own existence. And honestly, there are certain types of people in the world and organizations over the thousands of years that have always tried to limit human expression in different ways for political control and so on. But in our heart, in our own personal life, we know that we exist as beings far beyond society and far beyond our personality. There's space within us that we can explore. And that's what we call esoteric psychology, where we understand some sense of the fluidness of our own awareness and a vastness of our own potential from meditation and from letting go of all what we identify with for a while, and just not have an identity in the normal sense of the word. We don't have to, like people put on a costume to go to work, for example. Imagine being a clown or something. You got to put on this costume every day to go to work. But hopefully when you come home, you take off the costume, you see. So the same happens with our career and all these things that we get into. We have a personality that defines us in some degree, and is a functional thing. It's okay, but when it becomes proscribed and cut and chopped up and pigeonholed and all that with society, then we start to lose the full potential of being a real human being. And that's what all the great sages have always talked about, like be simple and try to understand this life on a moment-to-moment basis and know who you are in a deeper sense, and then life gets a lot more clear, and you won't need so many books and things to help, and you won't certainly have to live by the way people tell you to live. Now, I want to give you a little bit of an example here. Let's say you're in a train, and you're sitting by the window, and you're looking out the train window, and you're just completely right up to the glass, and all you see is you see all the scenery passing by, and you're watching everything, and you're watching the whole drama, and you pass towns and villages and farms and fields, and then you know all that stuff about that, and maybe people even sit by the window in a train and make drawings, they take pictures out the window. But there's one thing missing. They don't turn around and see what's happening right in their own compartment or in their own vehicle, because maybe there's a feast right there next to them, or maybe some interesting company that they could be having a conversation with or something, or maybe there's some books to read or something. So what I'm getting at is that if our perception is always, always, always just looking out, like face to the glass, we see all the outward world and we know everything about it and everything, but we forget that there's a whole area of awareness and existence that's within our own being, you see. And people who have been blinded or have lost a sense of something, then they have an internal expression. Some of them became great writers or musicians or whatever, depending on their situation. So obviously, through history, we can see that there's tremendous possibility in every single human being. And that's why we need to understand what esoteric psychology is about, because it's not about behavior. You see, we're here for such a short time on this world, and we're never going to understand the whole cosmos. We're never going to be ever be able to grasp it intellectually. We can practice a certain science all our life, and we'll get one little glimpse of, and we can practice meditation. The best that we can do is have a really open heart and an open mind and open feeling ability to feel this existence on a moment-to-moment basis and understand that besides what's going on outward as the scenery passing by, there's a whole dimension of existence that is within our own being. Now, because we live we live fast lives, everybody's so busy, and we have a certain limits to ability to comprehend everything. Our senses perceive things, our subconscious perceive things that we don't consciously recognize, and that builds up and builds up and builds up and builds up. And we have what's called the unconscious mind, or the different things that bother us from within, and unresolved issues and misunderstandings and things like that. And what modern psychologists try to do in depth psychology is to help people understand, look, besides your conscious mind, there's another dimension of awareness. And it has to do with all these suppressed things and so on. Now, that's fine to a point, but even beyond all those suppressed things, we need to have a bridge from our conscious mind right on through, all the way through our superconscious perception, through the inner. We have to, if we can live consciously so that we're simultaneously living in this world and experiencing everything around us and functioning just fine, flying planes or whatever, doing complicated actions, but simultaneously have an awareness of a lot more depth of awareness of what's really going on, like the subtle things. For example, just even on the physical senses we might be able to hear subtle sounds that we don't normally pay attention to. And there's a lot of other subtle things in life that we may be able to perceive if we just take a break and just slow for a second. And just open a fraction of a second. You see, sometimes, like if you're in a really dark space, you crack a door just a tiny bit, that's enough. Just enough to understand that, first of all, there's a lot more dimension to being a human being than anything society can put on us, or our parents, or religion, or anything. There's a lot more to our existence, and that's a private experience that we all have, you see. And knowing ourselves, there's teachers out there right now. I practice a knowledge that's taught to me by a man named Prem Rawat. He calls it knowledge, a direct experience. I won't get into it, but very simple techniques. And there's lots of techniques. The trick is you got to do some techniques. You got to find something to go inward with and just do it. Because when we rest within our own being, we find ourselves expanding, you see. And we start understanding our existence a lot better. Now I have some notes here, and I want to try to keep to a little bit of a formula here, because there's a lot of people in this world, they don't even know. Nobody ever told them, look, you can have a vastly bigger experience of your existence, and a much happier one than you can possibly imagine. And it's not that difficult. It's not difficult. It has to do with understanding who we really are. When we're in our private moments of meditation, there's nobody there to judge us. There's no conflict. There's no comparison. We don't have to evaluate ourselves in reference to somebody else or how many possessions we have or something. And just that experience alone, being free and feeling and knowing that we're not this body and that we have an awareness, it's just a tremendously liberating experience. Because it changes your whole life if you understand, look, if I have a technique, okay, I have some techniques, I have some methodology that I can use to resolve inner conflicts and understand my own being and feel some sense of peace in my life and joy, so that everything in life gets affected in a very positive way because of that. See, So this is the first I'm going to talk a little bit about esoteric psychology in a specific way here, because I want to explore this, and what I want to do is tell people, look, why can I talk about something like, there's a lot of people who are professionals and have PhDs, and I've known some people in my life who had very, very high level of training in depth psychology and so on, and we've had long conversations. Symbolism, and there's a whole lot of mysticism. There's a whole lot of interesting, fascinating subjects that you can get into that our awareness can have, that we can be a part of and include in all the other things that we do in our life. And I have to make these videos in fairly short segments because it takes a long time to load them, and if they're smaller segments, it's better. So please like and share. First of all, this particular video, the start of this series, is trying to encourage people to look within and have a sense of letting go, because ultimately, we need to be told this when we're young here. We're born, we're happy in our life and everything, and we hold on to all different things. But one day we have to let go of everything, you see. And all our life, there's different situations we have to let go, let go, let go, and let go. And for some people, it's like, well, it's scary. I'm going to letting go. I'm not. If I let go, I won't have anything, you see. But that's not really true. When you let go of what you think the limits are, then you have what you really are. And that's why so many religions say, oh, we got to surrender, let go. Forget the word surrender. That's just not even a really appropriate word to use. It's just relaxing the fixation on holding on to a certain type of identity that we think that we are, whether it's whatever. There's so many different ways that people hang on to some kind of identity. And all the sages say is just let go part of the time. Take a deep breath, slow down. All those problems and issues and things that are, plague our life and so on, and details that we got to deal with and so on, they will stay there if you just, but they'll get worse if you don't stay calm and, just be centered. Now, there are many techniques out there, and I don't want to be biased. Everybody has their own path. I tell you a little bit, where I practice. I want to share with you some books right now before I finish, of things that inspired me. And I practice a certain practice of meditation, but I've listened to many, many different sages and gurus and other kinds of teachers and philosophers and so on, and I've read a lot of books and so on. And ultimately, I find what works. I practice it. It's simple. It's profound. But there's some really, really important books that I want to share with you. And one of them I just did. I said the Upanishads. That's one of the oldest books. It's a fantastic book. It's very simple and short. And you can read it and keep it around for a long time. Another one that I had a profound experience with is this book here. This is called The Light of the Soul. Now, this is basically a commentary on the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, which are at least 5,000 years old and far older. They were recorded, and he wrote basically, I think it was 108 statements about the human consciousness and what things can be done. Very, very profound statements, and in the original language, the sounds are made in the particular language that they had. The sounds have meaning. They evoke an actual experience, and they have multiple dimensions of meaning. But the translation, even in the modern times, you can still get a lot about it. There's a lot of commentaries on this. This is by Alice Bailey, Yogananda, and Vivekananda. Many people have done commentaries on the Yoga Sutras. You got to get into that and look into, like, wow, man, that people could, it starts with something really basic. Going inside. Let's all pay attention to this life, basically. Let's pay attention to the most important things in life for a little while. Let's teach each other. Let's learn together and learn about this life. The Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. Now, this book here, Esoteric Psychology, I started getting into this back in the 1970s. And there's another volume of this here, and I read both of them a long time ago. Wow, I mean, there's things about our equipment, okay? In a nutshell here, the yogis and teachers say, look, there's something about the physiology of this body, this human body that we have, that is functional in a way that we're not normally told about, okay? And it has capacities There's refinements that we can make, there's foods that we can take, there's nutrition that we can take, there's practices of meditation. If people have gone into it extreme ways, there's all kinds of things that people have done. But in a nutshell, this human body, if you take care of it and keep it healthy, you can practice meditation, you can have profound experiences, you can have expanded perceptions on subtle psychic experiences. It's absolutely extraordinary, and every human being is an additional, is a unique individual. So it's pointless to say, well, do you have this comparable experience? Because it's like our own hearing is different from person to person slightly. Same with our eyes, same with our inner experiences. We have our unique experiences of awareness of this life and what we understand. And it's a very personal thing. And the beauty about it is it's endlessly beautiful, because as we expand and know ourselves through meditation and through living and practicing involvement in society and so on, we have profound experiences that unfold in a very personal way, you see. Now, I have to cut this short here. It's about 21 minutes already, and I want to encourage people to share and like, because, again, I'm going to make another video and expand this a little bit and start getting into some really practical things. Because, again, don't trust what I say just because I say it. Same way with these books. If someone can teach you something that works, that you can have your own experience, that awakens your own understanding, then consider that a teacher, whatever it comes from. Books, videos. There's a spontaneous awakening that people can have, because there's nothing to achieve here. See, we already have this equipment. It's kind of like if you have a fantastic car, but nobody tells you it's got 100 different features, you see, but you're sitting in the car listening to the radio. That's all you know about it, but you don't know what it can do, see? The same way with this body, with this existence, there's subtle things going on, there's experiences that we can have, there's awarenesses that we can have that are much, much different, and help guide us in our life to build that bridge from the conscious mind to the unconscious mind, or what I call the superconscious mind, because there's a part of our perception that is already in another dimension perceiving, you might say, and it's like, if we had a part of our being that was 20 feet tall, can see 100 miles ahead or something. You see, there's a part of our awareness, there's subtle parts of our awareness that we can become more conscious of, so that we have less of the unconscious and a lot more of the conscious. So thanks again for watching. Please like and share, and I'll see you in the next video.